Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now this is something that has been a long time coming. Ever since last year's December marathon where we looked at Vidal's progress to becoming a major member of the Dragon team, people have been wondering whether we would do the same thing with someone like Chichi, the character that had been pushed to the background and made fun of by the likes of Toriyama, the show's creator, for decades because of stereotypical ideology about Japanese housewives. Fun. Can you tell I'm being sarcastic here? I don't actually think that. And yes, that's what we're doing today. The cool bit, not the lame bit. With the same help as last year from Sophie B and Haverock, we would like to present to you the first part in 13 throughout the entire month of December. Just something a little comforting and wholesome, as well as cool for the rest of the year as we wind down and mark over 5 years since we started making content and what ifs here in 2022. Gosh, it's been a long time. I hope I've improved since then. You can also check out our holiday collection of merch, plus get a signed holiday card from me by going to MasakoX.com. Check the link in the description for more information. Right, let's get into why we're doing this and why it needs to happen. So, making Chichi a Z-fighter. Yes, it needs to be explored in some capacity. Now, granted, I know you're going to say that we touched upon this in our What If Goku Was Female series, where Chi-Chi in that is part of the Breakfast Club of Combat, therefore becomes a Dragon Team member. However, I didn't want to just retread old ground. I'd want a different spin to that, as well as start something from much earlier, back in the day of Dragon Ball, to really explore Chi-Chi's character from her perspective, and how it might impact the story, or not impact the story. That's the thing. It's going to be really fun finding out what does occur and differentiates itself from the Breakfast Club version of Chi-Chi. Okay, with that out of the way, let's set the scene. So it all begins in the time before Fire Mountain, where it was known more aptly as Pleasant Mountain. This is actual lore, look it up. The Ox King had had a daughter named Chichi, and yet he had sadness in his heart as well. His dear wife, the Ox Queen, had succumbed to the rigors of childbirth, leaving him as the sole parent to look after his little girl. Of course, thanks to his kind and good nature to those who he actually cared about, he was a doting father, and Chichi had a good life. For a little while. That all changed, of course, when fire spirits engulfed the area and changed the area to be called Fire Mountain. The Ox King had asked them to protect the area with flame to ensure nobody could invade, but his request got lost in translation. That went south fast and the entire place ended up being ablaze. Not just a circular force field like he intended. Oops. So despite having wealth and power, Ox and Chi-Chi didn't really have a proper home that wasn't tainted with the king's mistake or lack of clarity in his instruction. But one day, things began to look up. A young boy named Goku and a brash teen named Bulma arrived looking for something called a Dragon Ball, something that Ox was keen to protect as it was quite valuable. However, things eased a bit when he found out that Grandpa Gohan was the kid's parental figure. With the help of his daughter, they were able to go back to Roshi's to get the Bansho fan, only to then find out it had been pawned off many years ago by the master. So yeah, he has to go and do his kamehameha shtick instead, taking out the fire and most of the mountain. Now, this is where things change for the little girl. Now, this is a common misconception for some fans, but Chi-Chi wasn't always loud, abrasive, and paranoid like we see in Z. She started off actually as timid, meek, and yet she wore that. How does that work? Anyway, Toriyama had created her to be the princess to Goku's prince sooner or later. But he then eventually bailed on that concept halfway through Dragon Ball, realising that he couldn't actually write her in a decent way, so he reverted to what he did best. Write brash and aggressive dames, and Chi-Chi was just like that for the 23rd tournament. He just reverted to type. Well, not today! As things were wrapping up and Roshi was about to head for home, Chi-Chi suddenly spoke with a loud and determined push. Teach me! What's that, kiddo? Said Roshi with some confusion. I want to learn how to do what you did, to protect my home, so nobody can endanger it ever again. And we don't need to rely on fire mages to do it. Right, Daddy? Ox looked very awkward.
I don't know what you mean, sweetie. Nasty no-goods did all this. I had nothing to do with it.
Roshi gave her a serious expression and sized her up. No, not like that. Stop it! I see. Well, what do you think, Ox? Ox was back in the spotlight again. He was very much torn. The idea of his daughter was very laudable and would be useful for when his time was past, but he knew his master well and would be naturally perturbed about his nature spilling over onto his daughter. But he couldn't say no to his little girl. But then Goku made his mind up for him. She can tag along with us! Chi-Chi's eyes beamed. She did like Goku a lot, and was amazed by his skills at learning the kamehameha so fast. The chance to be close to him more and more was very enticing.
Daddy, Goku will protect me. I'll be alright.
That made Ox feel a little bit more assured, so he took the young one aside.
I hope you know what you're doing. Chichi is very important to me, especially after we lost her mother so tragically. Promise me that you'll take good care of her, okay?
Goku nodded,
Sure, mister.
not really realizing that Chi-Chi was eyeing him up for husband material. Goku just wanted to be helpful here is all. Roshi makes a decision. Tell you what, if she can cope being around Goku while he collects the Dragon Balls, I'll train you, kid.
And if not,
Said the king. Well, you can step in. After all, your power's not to be messed with. You should really exercise it more. Ox didn't use his power that much since he was so strong he could have wrecked anybody without even trying, and also he had gotten soft lately and was also racked with shame in front of his master. His power was technically 900, but had fallen way below that in the interim, so he just chose to look tough instead. That usually worked through not fighting at all. And as for his daughter, it was a risk. But Ox knew Goku was a good egg. He'll be nice to his daughter. Or else. So over the course of the first adventure gathering the Dragon Balls, Chi-Chi didn't really contribute that much to proceedings since she was a bit of a hanger-on, since she had little experience in martial arts. And what I mean is that she mostly acted as an additional party member, but she had her moments, thanks to her trusty helmet giving some bad guys a rough time, most notably during the push against the Carrot Mob and Monster Carrot. Goku was impressed and told Chi-Chi that, to which she blushed profusely. Yes, she had been internally terrified with the whole ordeal, but she really wanted Roshi to teach her, and so she would stomach whatever test this was and would ultimately win out. Having Goku say nice things about her was also a nice little addition. By the time we get to the Wish and Oolong saving the day, as he does, Chi-Chi has been through a lot, especially finding out that her crush could turn into a giant gorilla. That was pretty scary, but what prevented her from bottling it at the last hurdle was that the monkey wasn't attacking her and was on their side. If things had been different, she probably would have gotten out there fast. After all was said and done, Goku took Chi-Chi back to Grandpa Gohan's place to rest a little bit before then heading off to Kame House and commencing their training. He and hers. But she didn't realize that Gohan had actually been dead for years. That hadn't come up. So when Goku introduced her to his grandpa, it was a cushion, which had once housed a Dragon Ball.
Yeah, well, 4-star Ball's usually Grandpa, but we'll find him again.
Chi-Chi was sad. She felt sorry for Goku to be all alone for this time. Yeah, he had managed to survive out here on his own, but it couldn't have been easy for him growing up. Well, if she were to marry him and be his wife, she would definitely take care of him. They'd make a nice life together, and he would always have someone to stand by his side. But first, she wanted to train herself up, do something for herself. Marriage can come later. For now though, she wanted to get stronger and learn those cool ki attacks that Roshi demonstrated. What also was nice for Chi-Chi to experience was the silence of Mount Paozu. She loved this place. It was tranquil and not on fire. That was nice, to not experience tremendous heat waves. She could picture herself remaining here in the future. Why would she want to move to the city when this was right on your doorstep? But once Goku had rested up and fed from the river a giant fish to which Chi-Chi was mightily impressed with, and shared, they both headed for Kame House to begin their training. When they got there, Roshi was there to greet Goku, but actually never expected to see Chi-Chi standing right next to him. So, you actually lived?
Huh?
Said Chi-Chi with surprise.
You didn't expect me to make it?
Well, that's like yourself. I didn't picture that you could... Chi-Chi's eyes sparked with rage, and she stomped the ground with a mighty thud.
Don't judge me! I just got here! Train me, and then you can judge me!
Roshi's glasses slipped slightly. Seems like Ox's latent strength was in there somewhere. He then changed his tack there and then. All right then, we shall start in the morning. Make the most of this quiet time, kiddos. It's not gonna be easy. With that, the two of them got themselves comfortable and prepared for the morning's training. Now, I bet you're expecting Roshi to be lecherous and sleazy with Chi-Chi, seeing as she's a girl. Well, no. I don't believe he'd do that for two reasons. First, when it comes to martial arts training, what's between your legs doesn't matter. To Roshi, in that moment, you are a student, and you're expected to act like one and follow his rules, modes, and instructions. He didn't even ask the two of them to score him a girl, like he did in the original, since they had technically done that with Chi-Chi, but he never asked them to do so in the first place, so that's how he managed to get around his own rules. The second reason? Ox. He'd kick his ass if he did that, so that was obvious. He wasn't going to do that. So when it came to the training proper, the days were tough, and Chi-Chi was definitely not used to this type of training. Goku found it easier, but the repetition was getting to him. He had the latent power to cope with this, but he certainly didn't enjoy it. They had also been joined by Krillin whilst training, and even with the addition of a third peer, it really didn't make things easier. Yes, Krillin at that time was not as nice as he is now, but he ended up being more mellow with Chi-Chi around, and it happened faster since she was pretty. However, she did turn him down soon into their time together. She was saying that Goku was the only one for her, but then Goku would be like,
But Krillin's here too. Can't you see him?
oh, Goku. So naturally you can tell that without the challenge to find a girl, they don't meet launch at this point in the story. Will we meet her in time? Perhaps. We shall have to wait for another chance to do so though, if it ever comes around. So now, we fast forward a little bit. 8 months later, Goku, Chi-Chi and Krillin have trained their socks off with the same training day after day. It had been hard, arduous and stressful, but they had done it. In that time also, the trio had become very good friends. They stuck together to help get through the training as one, and in their downtime, they would often play games and talked into the night, when they really should have been sleeping preparing for the training the next day. This means that Chi-Chi has a closer tie to Krillin. Not a chance to be romantically involved or anything like that, but certainly more likely to hang out with each other than the original at least. You could call them proper friends. And another plus from training together and spending time with one another means that Goku and Chi-Chi were much more solid. There was much more going on in their relationship. Goku understood Chi-Chi more and liked her as a friend from the start. He understood her more and brought her out from under her shell in the way that Goku is famous for doing, to which he was very grateful. She was feminine and sweet, but she was pleased to know that underneath there was the power of an ox, something she naturally inherited from her father. She grew into a much more capable fighter, more confident in herself as a person. She felt tougher, stronger, and yet still herself. She was worried that she might have lost her identity whilst training, becoming just another fighting grunt. She had seen kung fu movies where they had become soulless fighters with no persona whatsoever, but with Krillin's presence, it assured her that that wasn't always the case. The kid chilled out during his time at Kame House just like she had done, much more relaxed than he had been after escaping the monastery. One day, Roshi called the three of them together and said that they wouldn't be training the same old routine today. They would be doing combat training to prepare themselves for the upcoming 21st World Martial Arts Tournament. I think your kids are ready for the next step of your training. Wait, said Krillin. You mean all we've done isn't even past the first step? Roshi shook his head. Nope, I'm having to rush through things a little bit. I think you'll do all right now. Ideally, you could use a few more years at this step, but I'm feeling frisky. The trio looked floored. There could have been years of this? What? Chi-Chi was almost sick of milk at this point. But things looked up a bit when Roshi presented all three of them the same orange present, the Turtle School gi. They had earned it, ready to represent the school in the contest. Chi-Chi was elated. She had seen something similar in Ox's study, hanging up on the wall. Smaller than his current frame, but one time ago it had housed his heft as he trained with Roshi. Now she had her very own. She felt so good right now. For a few days before the tournament began, this new training was far more refreshing. Anything would have been. The three of them excelled in this new change of pace. It was so welcome after months of staleness. It was present also to the realization of their training. It had been monotonous, but it yielded results. Goku felt incredible, much stronger than he had been when he first got there. For Chi-Chi, the change was even starker. She didn't really have a power level worth speaking of when she began, but now she felt invincible. She had a power level of about 60 to Goku's 100. Yes, it wasn't as powerful as Goku's, but since she's fully human and coming from nothing, and also inheriting stuff from Ox, she can't be that strong as Goku, and she's also a rookie, but give it time. Her multiplier gain was greater though, and on the day of the tournament, she was ready to put on her gi for the first time. And in doing so, she took off her helmet for the last time. She didn't need it anymore. She could rely on her own internal strength to guide her and keep her and her father safe.
You served me well, but I'm ready for the next chapter.
But one last thing before she and the others left. It was sunrise. She was stood next to the shore, getting into her signature stance to fire a kamehameha. She hadn't been taught it yet. That wasn't part of her training. But she was one step closer wearing that gi to achieve her dream. Then she felt someone standing behind her. It was Goku.
Hey, what you doing?
Chi-Chi blushed.
It's silly, but one day I can do what Master can do. Well, I can show you,
said Goku with no fuss. He walked up to Chi-Chi and then positioned her hands and torso to fit his take on the attack. Chi-Chi was beet red at this, being touched like this, but kept her cool.
So now you gotta dig deep into yourself. Find your energy and pull it in your hands. It feels weird, but it's how I do it. Then you say the word. Follow me.
Goku then got into his stance and asked Chi-Chi to do it from scratch. She followed his guide, and after a few goes, she could feel the energy moving to her hands, and then above them, into a small ball. It was far smaller than Goku's, but it was there. She was ecstatic, so elated in fact, she gave Goku a massive hug and a little peck on the cheek.
Thank you, Goku. Now I know this hasn't been a waste. I got this.
She was motivated to improve, and Goku was happy to see her happy, but confused as to why she put her lips on his face. He had no idea where they had been. But Chi-Chi was now ready to take on the 21st tournament. But that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what do you folks think? Is this a good start to seeing Chi-Chi excel as a Dragon Team member? How do you expect this to unfold as the month goes? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I will see you in the next video. Catch you later!